ladies and gentlemen. We are at the halfway point of Season 4. My name is Mike Larkin, and as always, by my side as we do this thing called Uncaged, Daniel Crimmins. What's up, Daniel?
Maggle, we are living the dream. We are back in the saddle again, as the song would say, and we have a good show tonight. We are going to get the F out.
I see what you did there. We are going to be talking about the WWF World Wildlife Fund lawsuit and the Get the F Out. Worldwide? Like we Titus Worldwide. Daniel, first, before I even read these two articles that I'm going to put on the screen for the folks and we get into our analysis on, how crazy is it that now it has been officially 22 years of the anniversary since we got the F out?
You know, it's wild to me. Like I remember back to that time when they announced it, it was like, the panda people?
The pandas? The pandas.
I mean, I get, like, I just don't. Now, from what I heard, they can use the logo, like, you know, the old block logo, but they can't use the name, which is weird to me.
Which is crazy, because if you remember on video games and a lot of stuff, they would have to, like, censor every time they'd say WWF, yeah.
Which they do. I think they just split hairs at this point, because it's like, why risk it?
True. I mean, the WWF, originally, it was the World Wildlife, it was the World...
It was the Worldwide Wrestling Federation.
The WWF. Thank you. Yes, I almost said World Wildlife. The Worldwide Wrestling Federation. And then when Vince McMahon Jr. took over, it was always the WWF, the World Wrestling Federation. Mm-hmm. And here's my thing. Like, I remember as a kid going into my kitchen, my mom used to have the stickers for the World Wildlife Fund. That's, I think, we used to give to them as a kid. Did you ever used to give to them, like, charities and stuff like that?
A couple times, yeah. And I remember getting the stickers, and I remember seeing, like, WWF, like, what is this?
Right? But that's the thing, too. And it's crazy just because you're thinking of a time period out of everything that Vince McMahon has gone through, this steroid trial in the early 90s, and now he's getting standards and practices and all these things coming after him, you know, the right to censor, the censorship, the FCC. But God dang it, man, now the pandas are coming at him. And, well, we'll get into the pandas and why they got into him. So I'm going to bring up two articles. This is the first one I'll read to you. So here is some of the facts on the summaries of what happened, and then I'll read the other article. But first, we'll discuss this. So here's what happened. The plaintiffs, the WWF Worldwide Fund for Nature and its U.S. affiliate, World Wildlife Fund, Inc., seek enforcement of a contract dated January 20th, 1994, governed by English law. The contract severely restricts the defendant, Worldwide Wrestling Federation, the WWF, from using the initials WWF in its trade. The WWF was founded in 1961 as the World Wildlife Fund and is globally recognized. The defendant, originally named Worldwide Wrestling Federation, changed its name to World Wrestling Federation in 1979. The WWF's core business is live wrestling entertainment events. The parties entered into a settlement agreement after the plaintiff objected to the defendant's registration of the initials WWF as a trademark. The defendant initially complied with the contract but has ignored it since at least 1997. The plaintiff seeks summary judgment, arguing that the defendant has no real prospect of successfully defending the claim. So let's start it there with some of the facts there. What are your thoughts just about the fact that they continue to use the name? They don't give a rat's ass. It finally is caught up with Vince McMahon. Go ahead, hit me.
That's Vince.
Yep, that's Vince McMahon for you. I don't give a damn. I don't give a shit. We're going to use the name.
He probably looked at the cease and desist and like, ha! Throw it in the trash.
Gonna throw that shit in the fucking trash.
Honestly, he probably used it as toilet paper.
Oh, jeez.
Doesn't that sound like some shit he would do?
Oh, God, don't even. I see what you did there. Shit aside, we then go into the issue.
He'd stand back.
That's a fact. So we get into the issues. Whether the contract's restrictions on the defendant's use of the initials WWF constitute an unreasonable restraint of trade, and whether the settlement agreement between the parties should be enforced. Now, in your mind, after looking at this from the issues, should the settlement agreement between the parties be enforced?
Yeah. I mean, you had an agreement. You told them you weren't going to do it anymore.
And you do it. And I mean, the holdings, the court held that the contract prohibits the use of WWF in any form in the scratch logo, even on a less restrictive interpretation. The defendant argued that the restrictions were void as they amounted to a restraint of trade, but the court found that the plaintiff has a legitimate interest in preventing any confusion with the defendant. The court rejected the defendant's...
Which, just as an aside, not to interrupt, but Nobody is going to confuse World Wrestling Federation with World Wildlife Fund. It's not going to happen.
It's not, because again, the two separate entities, because one is wrestling and entertainment and that whatnot, and the other is an organization to help out animals. Like, nobody's gonna like confuse that. I mean, even as kids, when we were watching the WWF, the World Wrestling Federation, and like we mentioned, having the stickers and whatnot and the donations and the charity fund, like I would never ever, at least me, and I know you as well, I would never confuse the two.
No, like, it is dumb to say the least. Like, who in their right mind is going to look at the WWF logo at the time? I think they were using the scratch logo at that time. Who's going to look at it and be like, oh, that's the World Wildlife Fund? No.
Nobody. So as we move on, the court rejected the defendant's argument that the contract was unfair due to unequal bargaining power. The court found that the defendant's breach of the contract did not warrant an account of profits as a remedy. The court concluded that the proposed amendment seeking an account of profits should not be allowed. Let me get to the rationale. The court determined that the contract's restrictions were necessary to prevent confusion between the parties' brands and upheld the validity of the agreement. The court found that the plaintiff's legitimate interest in protecting its brand outweighed the defendant's arguments of restraint of trade. The court held that the defendant's breach of contract did not meet the criteria for an account of profits as a remedy. And the court reasoned that breach of a full restraint of trade clause should not be treated differently from a lesser restraint, such as the one in this case. And our conclusion brings us to the court granted summary judgment in favor of the plaintiffs, upholding the validity of the contract and denied the defendant's arguments against it. The court also rejected the defendant's request for an account of profits as a remedy. And then I'll read the other article in a second. But let's head into this, Mr. Daniel Crimmins. Rightfully so, the right people won in the World Wildlife Fund. So for me, and I'm going to say this to you before I read the other article, going from World Wrestling Federation to World Wrestling Entertainment, when you first heard that the name change was going to be WWE, as we all know and love it and sometimes hate it, thank you, Vince, what were your thoughts on the name change to the WWE as opposed to the F?
I just remember not caring. Like, okay.
Well, it's one of those things, too. Like, it's like when NWA TNA, and then it just went to TNA, which rightfully so, as we've known it for 20-plus years. I think with how you incorporate the entertainment value, Vince McMahon has already said it's sports entertainment, so you have something there to include it into it. I
mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Are there other names they could have done? Yes. But it's WWE. You know, it's an easy rebrand.
Oh, it absolutely
Like, they didn't have to... And they did it quick.
Very quick. And it's funny because I remember like the last WWF pay-per-view, and we'll get to these pay-per-views in a second, but the last WWF pay-per-view was Judgment Day 02. That was the last time we saw it.
Now, a fun fact.
Hit me.
When they unveiled when Ric Flair unveiled the Undisputed Championship and presented it to Triple H.
Yes.
That belt had the WWF scratch logo on it.
That's right. Yes, I remember that.
And last I heard, it's owned by a private collector somewhere.
Can I just say that was a sweet ass belt? I love that title design.
I like it when it went to the bigger one, the version 2.
Yes.
The one that Rock had, and I think Taker was the first one to have it.
Yes, when he beat Hulk Hogan with that weak ass choke slam. And just as an aside, Hulk Hogan, I said enough was enough. Why? I know we don't talk politics, but why? For the love of God, man. They went after my hero. What you gonna do when Donald Trump and the Trumpomaniacs run wild on you?
I don't. I got nothing.
You know what's funny about it, too? People on Twitter are like, oh, they can't have fun. It's not WrestleMania. This isn't WrestleMania 7 when Hogan's fighting Sergeant Slaughter, the Iranian sympathizer, with the Iron Sheik and everything in Iraq and the Cold War. This is not 1991. This is 2024. Number 2, it's fucking about the world, the nation. It's politics. I feel like when I slammed Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3 because I'm so giddy. Really? Like, this is what we're doing. You understand where I'm coming from? Like, this is not a fucking joke, people.
No. Like... Some of the people that they got, I got nothing.
Well, we do got something for you. Since we did mention Hulk Hogan, we are going to head now to the other article that talks about this fine lawsuit, folks. So this is from August 2nd, 2002. Wrestling loses WWF to Wildlife. The World Wildlife Fund puts the clinch once again on the World Wrestling Federation in a tussle over use of the WWF. The World Wildlife Fund has put the clinch once again on the World Wrestling Federation in a tussle over use of the acronym WWF, marking the latest legal setback for the entertainment group's marketing efforts. The UK Court of Appeal on Wednesday upheld the lower court's ruling that found the Federation has breached a 1994 agreement with the World Wildlife Fund that bars the wrestling group from using the WWF acronym. The decision, among other things, puts the future of the group's WWF.com domain name in doubt. We're obviously very pleased by the court's decision upholding the earlier court decision that confirms our rights to our initials, said Michael Ross, a spokesman for the World Wildlife Fund. We look forward to a speedy resolution in this matter as possible. Ross said the wrestling group had breached the agreement countless thousands of times. The International Conservation Group said it registered WWF in 1961 when it was founded. Now the organization, which aims to protect the world's wildlife and wildlands, expects the wrestling group to refrain from using WWF as a domain name and for selling merchandise with the acronym. The World Wrestling Federation declined to comment on the ruling, saying only that it will appeal the decision to the House of Lords, the Supreme Court of Appeal, in the United Kingdom. So they were hush on that decision. Your thoughts about that, Mr. Daniel Crimmins?
Again, right people won. Like, you were told not to do it.
And you did it. Now,
fucked around and you found out.
They did. That is a legal version of fuck around and find out, to put it in the bluntest of terms. I like your style. So in this particular time period, as we're looking back to 2002, folks, Judgment Day 2002, like we mentioned, the last WWF pay-per-view. And then we get to the summer of 2002. WWE King of the Ring 2002 was the first ever inception of the WWE banner. And I got to say this first and foremost, this was the same King of the Ring, which was won by Brock Lesnar. And we saw Undertaker Triple H for the Undisputed Championship. In the main.
Right.
Brock Lesnar won the King of the Ring 2002. Undertaker and Triple H for the Undisputed Championship. We saw Jamie Noble in the Hurricane. Now, I got to say this, going into summer 2002, they did run those doggone commercials. What were your thoughts on the commercial of Get the F Out, where they shave off the... Get it? What were your thoughts?
I enjoyed them. You know, I always thought their commercials were good.
Agreed. And I mean, you have them shaving off the WWE, Get the F Out. Now, you had this t-shirt much as I did, correct?
Yeah.
Now, for me, I think around that time period, and again, this is when I started watching wrestling because I came late to the game, but summer of 2002, I remember now, folks, we had ShopZone.com. Before it was WWE Shop, we had ShopZone.com to purchase these fine merchandises. And I thought to myself, that was funny. Like, I like it, like it's cool, but also at the same time, too, I think when you're going into the WWE era, I think for 22 plus years now, I mean, we've seen a lot of things come and go, but I mean, God dang it, man. It's great just to see, again, how the product evolved. And like you mentioned, they got that shit done quick. All right, you want us to change? We're going to change the WWE like that.
You know, we have had more WrestleManias that have been WWE WrestleMania than we had with WWF.
I think the last WWF WrestleMania was WrestleMania 18. Triple H, Jericho, Rock, and Hogan.
Which is honestly one of the best ones.
You know what it is, too? People will crap on it just because, and I've always said this, Triple H and Chris Jericho, and they've said it themselves, should not have been on last. Rock and Hogan should have been on last, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, too, man. Like, we look at the summer of 2002 when we got in WWE. We got Vengeance 02, which we've talked about, SummerSlam 02. Shawn Michaels coming back with Triple H and the Brock and Rock. Now, under the WWE umbrella, under the summer of 2002, and then we get to the fall, which Katie Vick, Survivor Series.
No,
not talking about it. Survivor Series, Armageddon. Now, this also started the Ruthless Aggression era. Do you like how they also kind of combined with the Ruthless Aggression era after WWE?
It was a change. You know, it was a change, you know, much as we're currently in a kind of, I guess you could call it a renaissance now with the Triple H era.
The Paul Levesque era. And isn't it crazy, too, that even still at this time period, one of the things that really also was big around the WWE time period after they got the F out, as we mentioned, what were your thoughts on, again, WWE is the only game in town. There's no WCW anymore. There's no ECW anymore. I mean, Ring of Honor and TNA were starting up. You know, as we know, TNA is still going strong 22 years later. And Ring of Honor is now owned by, I'll pay you! And they just had their pay-per-view. It's never not going to get old. With Mark Briscoe and Roderick Strong in the main event. Did you watch Death Before Dishonor?
I didn't. Who ended up winning that?
Mark Briscoe.
Good.
But yeah, and Red Velvet beat Billy Starks for the Ring of Honor. She's the women's television. And I don't mean you laugh at Red Velvet. I like Red Velvet, but come on. Like, come on. You know what I'm saying? Ugh. Booking decisions. I'll pay you.
I'll pay you.
So Ring of Honor starts off around this time. So does NWA TNA. And I'll ask you, because this also goes around the time period of getting the F out. WWE is in the mix of King of the Ring, building up Brock Lesnar. John Cena has debuted. Randy Orton has debuted. Batista is with the Reverend Devon, the Deacon Batista, if you will. What were your thoughts on the come up of NWA TNA and Ring of Honor?
I enjoyed, the early NWA TNA. I remember ordering a couple. I believe it was Wednesday night, like 8:00. It was $10.
Yep, I used to buy all those too. And this is before 3-hour pay-per-view in 2004 when they started. They used to be $10 on a Wednesday. So WWE Network price for a Wednesday night show.
And they were good shows.
They were. Like, for me, I started in 04 with TNA, so I started when Jeff Hardy and AJ Styles, Jeff Hardy and Jeff Jarrett, so when Impact was actually coming on for a television show. But those early days, man, Jeff Jarrett and Scott Hall, Raven coming into the company, a lot of stuff happened from 02 to 03.
Phil Brooks.
CM Punk is a part of Raven's flock with Julio De Niro and Alexis Lurie, who we now know and love as Mickie James.
And the thing that gets me is we had also R-Truth as the NWA World Heavyweight Champion.
Yes, beating Ken Shamrock.
Twice. And yet, here he is. Give that man a title at least once.
Oh, man. But him and The Miz were great tag team champions with a short period of time. But that dude's funny. That dude for 22 plus years has always been funny. Even the K-Quick when we were getting rowdy with the Road Dogg, man. I love that. But that's my thing, man. 2002 was an interesting time period for the WWE getting the F out. Besides the merch, besides the commercials, do you like the fact that we started, especially like we mentioned, we'll get into more detail on our best and worst King of the Ring episode coming up, but the fact that it started with King of the Ring being the WWE get the F out, what were your thoughts on that? Because King of the Ring 02 was not a bad show.
No. And I think it signified the change, as with everything changes, we had Brock Lesnar being crowned as the heir apparent, as, the next guy.
Mm-hmm. The next big thing. See what I did there?
I wonder what ever happened to that guy.
Well, all right, this is topical, so we're going to mention it. Mister, I wonder what happened to that guy, because usually we joke and are very tongue-in-cheek. But Triple H was asked about Brock Lesnar, and by the way, how pissed is Tony Khan going to be if they get WrestleMania in London? We're the only one who's supposed to do the UK shows, all in.
I'll pay you!
So, what are you...
FTK.
FT. So, first of all, I think WrestleMania deserves to be in London one time, and I really hope it happens.
I think it's going to happen.
I think so too.
I seriously doubt they would be posting all this shit and talking about it if it wasn't happening.
No, and that's the thing too. Not only do they rightfully deserve it, but number two, they've done so many international shows. We got Clash of Berlin coming up for Germany. Why not? Why the hell not?
We've had Puerto Rico. We've had France. We're having Germany coming up. We've had the Blood Money shows. They had Money in the Bank in England.
Yep, Scotland. Yep.
Why not, Mania?
Yeah, that's my thing too, and this is where Brock Lesnar comes into it. And Triple H has said, because they asked him about it, he would sit down and they would have a conversation. Do you see Brock Lesnar coming back? I don't. Here's my thing, and I don't mean to put it like this because I know there's a lot of Brock Lesnar fans out there. I was one myself, much like yourself as well. They don't need him. No. That send-off with Cody at SummerSlam, that was a perfect send-off for Brock.
At this point, what's left to do?
Him and Gunther.
But at this point, bringing Brock Lesnar back would be a PR nightmare.
Oh, that's the thing too, and I think people don't realize, like, for a business standpoint, the nightmare of the PR, like you mentioned, with everything, the accusations and allegations that were put on him through the Vince stuff, it's like,
whether it's true or not
it's
is
not a good
totally
look.
irrelevant. It does not matter.
It's not a good look.
I think what people need to understand is that, it's not about what's true. It's about public perception.
Mhm.
Brock maybe didn't do anything wrong. We don't know. Because he's not talking.
No, and he's been very quiet about everything that
He
came
doesn't
out.
like people.
Well, yeah, that is true. He does not like people. He just likes his own seclusion in Saskatchewan. There.
Honestly, he's probably off at his home hunting.
That's it. Like, yeah, all right, say what you will about me. I'm going to go hunt. I'm going to go hunt.
He's made his millions. What's left? He's done everything there is to do. The first person to break the streak.
Exactly. And
I would much rather have Roman Reigns back than Brock.
Oh, agreed. And can I just say this about people back and leaving? Can people stop shitting on Bobby Lashley and saying, "Oh God, they dropped the ball"? Like, his second run in the WWE when he came back in 2018 was way better than his first run in 2005.
Two-time WWE champion.
Yep, Intercontinental champion, U.S. champion.
First, I think, like, the first black WWE champion, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, like a long ass time. Yep.
When was that? Kofi.
That was Kofi.
That was Kofi. But still, he held it twice.
Yes. And he's beaten a lot of people. He beat Brock. He beat Roman. He beat Goldberg. He beat so many people. Like, they used him in a prominent position. And he's 48. Like, what else do you want Bobby Lashley to do? And also, number two, him and MVP, 48 for Lashley. I think MVP is like 46. Also, I'm going to say this to the people. Don't have them go to AEW. Go back to TNA, where they were the Beatdown Clan. Go to fucking TNA. Him and Nick Nemeth. Him and Joe Hendry. Him and Moose again. Come on now.
You know where they're going.
Yeah.
Tony Khan will sign him. I guarantee you he will. He'll pay them.
I'll pay you guys.
I mean, the whole thing with MVP is tricky. It's those comments he was making, like, true or not. Personally, I don't believe in doing that stuff in public.
No.
Do I think he was trying to get out of his contract or, to get featured more? Maybe. I don't know.
But my thing is, too, like, I mean, he could talk about them pitching ideas. And what he kind of, like, related to was, like, the Hurt Business. A lot of the stuff that was pitched, like, it went to the Bloodline. But I'm like, first off, the Hurt Business had a great run, number one. And number two, like, if him, Shelton, and MVP go to AEW, fine. Personally, I'm more of a TNA cat for them. And also, Street Profits don't need him. They got BFAB now, which is fine. I mean, the Street Profits are going to be fine. And Tamina, I love Tamina to death. But what else are you going to have Tamina do? She, even if Tamina goes elsewhere, which her and TNA would be fire, or whatever they do with Tamina, she can help people wherever she goes. But, like, she was not, after, they gave her the title with Natalya during the pandemic era, which was a nice thing. But afterwards, it's like, what else do you do with Tamina?
And they had her do that feud with Bayley for the SmackDown Women's title.
Yeah, during the pandemic era.
Would have liked to have seen her get it, but
yeah,
it's beside the point. And the thing of it is, I don't think they need to go to AEW. I think AEW is fine. They got enough people in catering. Where's Sammy Guevara?
Still suspended.
Like, bring him back to TV already. Ricky Starks, we know where he's going.
Oh yeah, with everything, with his WWE connections, Cody Rhodes, and all that stuff. And I mean, look at Stephanie Vacker. Stephanie Vacker, was like, okay, you're not going to pick me up from the airport. I see where I stand in this company. I'm going to do the match, but I ain't signing here. And she went to where she always wanted to go in the WWE. She wrestled Isla Dawn over in Mexico. And now she looks to be going to NXT, which her and Roxanne Perez is going to be fire when they do that. Julia signed. Delta from Australia has signed. There's a lot of prominence right now.
Yeah. I think and this is what I'm really, really stoked for, is we're at that phase now where, they're going to start giving people big name money again.
Agreed. And I mean, like, when AEW started, it was like, oh God, here comes this other billionaire. But I think once Vince was gone, really showed Tony Khan's colors, number one, but also number two, what the hell's Tony going to do now? There's no more Vince McMahon. Like, the WWE product has gotten better under the Triple H auspices. And then you see Tony. Like, they're not going to be like afraid of, I'll pay you. Why won't you be my friend? Like, that's like, they're not like, Tony's just going to bury himself. We
Like,
should call
you got Osprey. Like, you got Osprey. You got, like, why was MJF versus Will Osprey on TV?
Because
that is a pay-per-view match.
Well, because they're doing MJF wins in 59-58, then Will Ospreay can win it back in Wembley because of Daniel Garcia, and that sets up MJF and Daniel Garcia for All Out. And now Hangman Page is going to probably wrestle Jeff Jarrett. Oh, boy. And again, this is not really to bag on AEW. We watch it each and every single week like we all do. We talk all wrestling and we're very uncaged, as the show states. But, folks, this product is really fucking frustrating to watch. It is. It's very frustrating because of the booking decisions of one Tony Khan.
And their version of Glacier.
Are you talking about Hologram?
Yeah.
Oh, God. I don't hate Hologram, but here's my thing. It's just he's another luchador from AAA. Aramis. Like, all right. Okay. He's got
a partner with CMLL, and which, you know, I'm hearing rumors that WWE is going to try and pursue AAA.
Yep. I mean, they're trying a lot of stuff. I mean, Pro Wrestling Noah, they got Naomichi Marufuji as a guest for SummerSlam.
Yeah.
Like, him and Nakamura, him and AJ Styles, run it back. Like, I am for it. I am totally for this.
Well, now, we got the partnership with NXT.
With TNA, which I've been enjoying, yes.
We believe in Joe Hendry.
We do. He's one of the hottest things right now. And I remember first seeing him in TNA in 2018 with Grado. And I'm like, okay, it's another comedy character. He could sing. He's funny. But now he's reinvented himself and rebranded himself.
He's doing a concert
next week on NXT.
Am I going to watch it?
Yes.
Because I believe in Joe Hendry.
As we all do. Now, this also brings me to actually tying it in with Get the F Out. We wouldn't have seen this. Like, imagine, here's my thing here. So now we have NXT TNA. We see all these partnerships under Triple H.
Yeah.
Triple H wants to work with everybody. Can you imagine if we had gotten, because we mentioned the startups of Ring of Honor and TNA, could you imagine Vince, who never wanted to work with anybody, actually working with Ring of Honor and TNA at the time, NWA TNA? Could you ever see that or no?
Had that happened,
yes.
Do we see NXT as it is now?
No.
Do we see an AEW? I don't know.
I don't know either.
Like, it's tough to say. I mean, I think it would still exist, but would it be what it is?
No, because, I mean, if NXT 2.0 was any indication of Vince McMahon's booking with the colors and whatnot, I mean, you saw how that went. So,
which, why haven't they changed out the title yet? I mean, it's like, it's still the rainbow color, like the pearlescent. I think that's the word.
Yes, pearlescent.
I mean, I think it looks nice, but like,
you're not NXT 2.0 anymore. This is NXT under Shawn Michaels, which I'm going to say this right now. Shawn Michaels has knocked it out the freaking park every single time.
And now we have rumors that eventually Punk wants to take over NXT.
Which, can I just say, I think that would be sweet. That would be really, really awesome.
Okay, like, I wonder how that would work. Like, what would that look like? Because, you know, HBK well, he's not a spring chicken either.
No, but I think, all right, I'll tell you what it would look like. If CM Punk actually continued to book Collision, and this is number 2, the difference between that AEW roster and the NXT roster, they'll actually listen to him. As opposed to the AEW roster. Like, the NXT roster will actually listen to him.
Like, Shawn Michaels is going to be
60.
He's going to be 60 next year.
Yeah.
And he looks it.
Yes, he does. Absolutely.
Like, cutting the hair did not do any favors.
No.
I mean,
yeah, I know. I get you. But do you also agree that if Punk, like, I think it would equate to how he wanted to book Collision of, hey, these guys, I think, but the NXT kids will listen to him.
You see, I think part of the issue with Punk, I think he knows this is his last shot.
I think so too. I think
he knows that if he messes this up, it's it. Like, there's literally nowhere else that'll take him.
And I think the fact that we have Drew McIntyre taking a photo with Jack Perry, which was approved, and they're approving everything, was amazing.
I thought that was. I was like, okay,
like, all right, we're going there. And here's the thing: he talked with Punk about this, and they're cool with it. He was fine with it. They had him Drew took it down, of course, afterwards, because they probably said, "Hey, why don't you want to take that shit down?" But like, it was funny. It was good. It enhances the feud.
Yeah. It's like wrestlers are friends. Like, I'm sure whatever happened, with Punk and Jungle Boy,
Jungle Douche,
it's done. It was at this point like a year ago.
Well, yeah, we're actually coming upon the year anniversary of the All-In incident with Real Glass Crimea River with Punk and Jungle Boy,
which should not have happened. Like,
no.
Jack Perry needs to take some responsibility. People need to acknowledge
Jack Perry and tell him to take some goddamn responsibility.
And I'm sorry, but I will never acknowledge Solo Sikoa as my tribal chief.
We got SummerSlam next week. So Solo Sikoa and Cody Rhodes next week. Oh my goodness. I am looking forward to that so much.
And the SmackDown before, we have the Bloodlines, Tama Tonga and Jacob Fatu versus DIY.
Do you give them the tag titles, or do you have Jimmy Uso come in and screw them?
I could see Jimmy doing it, causing a DQ.
Also, Johnny Gargano's from Cleveland, Ohio, so we could add a match and get a rematch there. Or do you just add Uncle Howdy against Chad Gable?
I don't know. Maybe.
I'm really curious to see it because, I mean, like I said, SummerSlam is next week, and I'm already psyched for the matches that they've announced. It's quality over quantity, but still.
I like what they've done with the Wyatt Six, where they, each week has been somebody different.
True.
Owen's thing was absolutely gut-wrenching. Like, you don't fake that emotion.
No, and I mean, Nikki Cross was, for the fact that we got to Scream and her being psycho again, I thought that was cool. But the best ones so far of those videos are Bo Dallas and Eric Rowan. I'm curious to see how they go into Dexter Lumis and Joe Gacy.
I mean, is Lumis going to actually talk? Or?
I don't know. Joe Gacy, you can go take it back to the Schism and talk about that. Like, I'm interested to see where they go with this.
I'm all for it.
And finally, they're actually doing something with the Creed brothers.
Yeah. But where does this leave Ivy Nile?
Oh, man. If I'm being completely honest about Ivy Nile, and I like Ivy Nile a lot, she's very, very impressive with her size and her stature. I mean, she's a youngin' and she's short, but she's very strong.
Yeah.
I put her back in NXT.
Yeah.
If I'm being completely honest, I'd put her back in NXT.
Or have her and Maxine Dupree be a tag team.
Which they were, and Maxine Dupree has gotten a bit better. I will say this. She's gotten better. Which
we have Otis.
Oh, Otis. I'm loving it so much. Like you mentioned, man, it's like to quote Daniel's point about being the Renaissance era. Like, I can't stop smiling. Just like the fact that Vince McMahon is gone, Triple H is in charge. It's a fun time to be a wrestling fan. There's a lot of great wrestling out there.
I mean, and even it's. I'll never understand this tribalism. I mean, you and I have talked about this ad nauseum about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would you want either company to fail?
And that's the thing. I mean, you can even kind of equate like, oh, if anybody listens to me talk, oh, you probably want to see AEW fail. No, I actually want to see them succeed. I'd like Tony Khan to get his head out of his ass.
I would like Tony to kind of dial it back a bit.
To dial it back a little bit, or just ask for help. Or just like fucking chill. Did you see that bullshit he said about how, Ring of Honor, maybe if we call it AEW Ring of Honor? No. How about no? How about no, Tony?
And then there was a comment about somebody in WWE saying that they'd signed it. What does it matter?
Oh, my dear sweet Jesus. I saw that on his friggin'.
I mean, I'll say this.
Yes.
I go by the Jurassic Park philosophy.
Yes.
Just because you can talk about it doesn't mean you should. Doesn't need to be said.
I listened to that call. Like, he was fine. He answered the question, and I'm like, okay, fine. And then he has to bring it. Oh, well, since Brandon brought it up, and I'm like, oh god, he's gonna he's gonna put his foot in his mouth, and he did because he can't help himself.
Like, just
I'll pay you.
I'll pay you.
Oh, fucking A. That's the issue, folks. It's not we hate AEW. It's Tony Khan needs to dial it back and stop hugging people and paying everybody. I'll pay you.
Like, you bring in all these people. Use the talent you already got.
Exactly. And now I'll compare it to Vince McMahon because during this time period, and Vince has said this during the Get the F Out time period, Vince McMahon has always been about, I know what they like better than they do. I think Tony Khan is like that. I know what they like better than they do because we do it for the sickos. He's literally turning into what he hates. That's what it is.
He's turning into a mark for himself.
That he is.
And you have such an amazing crop of talent, like, and then you have Mercedes Moné.
Mercedes Moné, the creative control, the friggin' she's the hottest free agent, greatest free agent we've ever had, and she's only had 5 matches.
Don't get me wrong, I think she's an incredible talent, but the thing of it is, like, you have people that aren't. You have Nyla Rose. You have, Britt Baker just came back, and I'm sorry, if Britt Baker doesn't go over in Wembley,
it's a crime. It really is a crime, but I don't think she's gonna. I honestly don't with what we have going. No.
I wouldn't be shocked if she leaves
and goes to WWE.
Yeah.
I mean, she's been in NXT once. She wrestled Shayna Baszler years ago. This was probably right after the All In match.
And got mollywopped.
And got mollywopped by Shayna Baszler.
Oh, don't forget, she was in the crowd. That's Adam Cole's girlfriend.
I cannot believe they showed her on camera. That was amazing. I popped for that. That was funny. On NXT TakeOver, yes.
And, just as an aside, now that we've got this partnership, can we get an apology for Robbie McAllister?
Oh my goodness, yes. All right, I'm glad you brought this up. So 2008, when they showed Robbie McAllister in the crowd on TNA, they showed his real name, Derek Graham Couch, WWE superstar. That look on his face was like, oh shit.
He saw that he was on camera and he's just like,
oh no. Oh no.
You fired him for it, which I don't think is fair.
So what Daniel's referring to in 2008, he gets caught doing, it was this, right? Like this. Yeah, it was like that, like, oh shit, I'm on TV. He was doing that. And then on Raw, for his punishment, he gets squashed by JBL. And then he got fired. Yeah. That was it for Robbie. Yeah, can we owe him an apology now that NXT and TNA are working together? Oh boy. And you know who punished him for it, Vince?
Of course.
God damn it, what are you doing on their TV? You work for me, god damn it.
And it said, like, they were super over.
The Highlanders? Yeah. When they were going for the tag titles and all that, yeah.
Wild times.
But
and Vince is still watches this stuff, and he's probably like, I don't get it.
I don't understand this. What story is he finishing? God damn it! Stardust is my champion. What the fuck?
And it's said that Cody initially was supposed to go over at Mania 39.
Yeah,
but Heyman and Roman were like, nah. Which, honestly, it made more sense to do it at WrestleMania 40.
Well, yeah, long-term booking, long-term storytelling.
And you know what? I was talking to everybody about this, and I kind of have this fantasy booking where I don't think Solo's ready to be, WWE champion yet.
Not yet, no.
So you don't have Roman come back yet. Mm-hmm. Hear me out. You have them beating Cody down, and then the music this could go one of two ways. Way number one, Roman's music hits, and you think the crowd just goes insane. Roman doesn't come out. Paul Heyman comes out.
Yep.
And he just does the one, and Solo turns around, eats the crossroad. 1, 2, 3. Cody wins. That's one way. Way 2, something similar happens. Paul comes out, does the 1. Solo's looking at him, turns around. What do you see? Spear.
Roman comes in, yep.
And then Cody pins Solo, and the show goes off the air with Roman and Cody just looking at each other. And then Roman just looking down at the title. And then title card, fade to black, cut, print, done.
I like that. I mean, with everything with Roman Reigns, especially coming back at SummerSlam, because that's where the Tribal Chief and all that started back at SummerSlam 2020. I'm really looking forward to.
Technically, it started at Hell in a Cell.
Really? Yeah, but I mean, like, the heel turn is what I should say. Thank you.
Yeah.
The heel turn started at SummerSlam 2020.
The gimmick.
But speaking of gimmicks, I will say this. Since we did mention the zaniness of the times here now, and especially wild times, especially from the WWE Get the F Out, gave us the Ruthless Aggression era. We talked about TNA and Ring of Honor starting up. We talked about how under Vince McMahon's ownership and leadership, of just how everything was zany, more tits and ass references, more poop humor, more just balls to the wall, stuff that would not fly today. HLA. Billy and Chuck. Yeah, but stuff that would not fly today, Daniel. So I dare ask you, as we touch upon the final parts of the Get the F Out, we read the lawsuit. We talk as only we could talk wrestling. This brings me to my final point. Vince McMahon feeling invincible, especially with the allegations that came out that we saw with Janelle Grant, the steroid trial years before the Get the F Out, and him just completely ignoring the World Wildlife Fund. Was this another case of Vince McMahon just being like, fuck it, I'm Vince McMahon. I can do whatever the fuck I want?
There's an old saying, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think once WCW went under and he beat, even before when he beat the federal government the first time, I think that gave him a sense of he's untouchable.
Mm-hmm.
So, do I think the allegations against him are true? Very possibly.
Well, with what we've seen on camera and knowing Vince, who is Vince, yes, I was I. And it pains me to say this, but when it first came out, much like you were like, "Is it true?" Yes, but I'm kind of like, it doesn't shock me because of the character that he is.
You have people that worked with him that are like, "Yeah, this doesn't surprise me."
That's just where we're at in today's thing, and I mean, especially like we mentioned the World Wildlife Fund, like he was so cocky, like, yeah, we're gonna keep doing it, and then they finally got him.
And I think part of it is the reason I think this is different. Society's different now
than what it was 22 years ago. Absolutely.
And it's, I mean, depending on what happens in November, he may get away with this. But if it goes a different way, he could be looking at some prison time.
My thing is, and we'll put this out because this does tie into what we're talking about. We mentioned Hulk Hogan and his dumbassery. If the former WWE Hall of Famer Donald Trump becomes the president once again, I could absolutely see him pardoning Vince McMahon.
I mean, there would have to be an indictment first, when charges filed. But knowing that there is an active criminal investigation, and they said that, they're pausing the lawsuit at the request of the DOJ, it's very possible. I mean, there's so much that's up in the air, but nobody has really seen Vince. Like, he's kind of been, keeping a low profile, which, freaking God.
Oh, you mean you don't want to see that mustache again?
No.
Oh, my Lord. But here's the difference. And I'll even ask you this, because with WWE being the only game in town at the time before everything came into fruition, do you think, especially with booking, like we talk about the more tits and ass, bra and panties, more balls to the wall, ruthless aggression era. Again, times have changed and society has changed. We've mentioned that many a times because people want, they've always talked about they want the Attitude Era back, right? But you notice when The Rock and Roman Reigns and the Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes, he calls him a cross-dresser and all that. You see how friggin' everybody was up in arms after that, and y'all want...
People don't want the Attitude Era back. They don't want it.
Right.
They say they do, but
they really don't.
You don't want it. Because let's be real here. A lot of the Attitude Era was garbage.
Yes. Even though it is one of the most iconic times, there's a lot of garbage there. And I'll equate it to the Ruthless Aggression Era, and I'll say this to you, Daniel Crimmins, because this was the start of it after we got the F out. Do you even want to see some of the Ruthless Aggression Era stuff back?
No.
And I grew up in that. That was when I started watching wrestling. I don't even want to see it back.
You know, I'm cool with watching what we got.
Me too.
We got Raw, SmackDown, NXT are all doing really good. You know, we got AEW, we got TNA, we got Ring of Honor, we got a lot of really good wrestling. We got New Japan. I wish New Japan had a better time slot.
I mean, it's on Thursdays on Access TV after Impact.
Yeah, but it's Access TV.
Yes. Do you get that channel?
I don't know. I don't think I do.
So I have Spectrum. It's channel 88 for those who have Spectrum cable. It's
in your area.
Yes. Oh no, I got it in New York too. It was on 88. Yeah.
Oh, maybe I don't know.
Yeah. So I do have to ask one final thing before we get the F out of here with this show. Because again, folks, I know we touched upon everything, but it makes sense. And this was just one lawsuit that led to what we have now, and especially many companies thriving and striving, and Tony Khan paying people. Daniel?
I'll pay you!
I'll pay you! I love you, Mercedes. Huh? So with Vince McMahon, one thing I do have to ask about this time period, one final thing, as we touched upon the angles and everything and where we are in society today, Daniel Crimmins, and the Renaissance, as this fine gentleman over here put it. Do you think this was also where Vince McMahon started losing his touch as far as booking goes? In 2002, WCW is gone, ECW is gone. WWE is the only game in town.
Absolutely.
Okay.
He didn't have, the drive. Like, he didn't have the urge to crush anybody. Like, there was nobody left.
I mean, again, 2002 gave us HLA, Billy and Chuck, and Katie Vick, and Tori Wilson, and Dawn Marie, and Al Wilson in one fell swoop. Yeah.
I think, it's, you're on top of the mountain, and when there's nobody else, you're gonna get complacent.
My thing too, as well as I can speak again from starting watching wrestling at this time, like seeing John Cena, who almost got fired at the time, because the Ruthless Aggression gimmick wasn't taken off, and then he rapped, and that started the word life. This is basic economics. Randy Orton got hurt, and he was out for a little bit. Batista was just in Deacon territory before he moved to Raw, and Brock Lesnar was on top of the world, like going for the Undisputed Championship. So, I mean, it did get
walking out.
And then walking out of WrestleMania 20 after that match, yes. But it was an interesting time, man. 22 years of get the F out. The WWE is back and better than ever, to quote Eric Bischoff, who has also made some news, which I will ask you. Eric Bischoff has pissed a lot of people off again, as Eazy-E does. He said that Tony Khan and AEW will never hit 1 million viewers ever again because they're stuck in ratings in the 700s and 600s. Do you think AEW will ever get 1 million views ever again with the TV and stuff, or no?
It's going to depend on a lot of factors. Time slot, their card, their roster,
the booking.
There's to say you can't really say yes.
Okay. And now, again, as this is going through my mind, and I swear this will be the last one, because you're bringing it out of me, Daniel Crimmins. I'm like you with your fantasy booking. I'm having these thoughts in my mind as well. Daniel Crimmins, one final question. Vince McMahon, with ratings and everything like we mentioned there, do you think this is also when ratings started dipping for WWE in 2002? Because wrestling was kind of like on the decline, because not only them being the only game in town, but also wrestling kind of wasn't cool anymore. Like once the invasion angle started, that's kind of where it dipped for a lot of people because it was so terrible.
Well, because you had an invasion with just mid-card talent. Yes. Because they didn't want to spend the money to, buy out the contracts for Sting, for Luger, Hogan, Savage. Well, we know why Savage didn't come back.
Oh, yeah, we definitely know why.
which I think there is some truth to that.
What, with him and Stephanie McMahon?
I wouldn't be shocked.
You know what it is, too? First of all, Randy Macho Man Savage, God rest his soul. There was a lot of stuff that went down at the time, and especially with what we had in the 80s and whatnot. But that was different times, too, as well. And I mean, Stephanie McMahon and Triple H falling in love, the Stephanie Test story. There was a lot going on around that time, sir.
Yeah, but like I said, that would have been the time to bring in the NWO.
And then the problem is, like, you had so many different opportunities to bring it in. But at the end of the day, man, it's just, it is what it is. It is what it is.
Hey, Vince knows best.
Not to be confused with Hogan knows best. So,
no.
With that being said, Uncaged knows best. And before we close this out, as I'm dipping through some papers here, let me get this out my way. Boom. Apologies. So, Daniel Crimmins, before we close this out, we have a hell of a rest of the season for everybody to tune into. Our next episode, I'm making Daniel watch it because I hate him. We are going to be looking back, since the Great American Bash of NXT Part 1 is this week. We are going to look back at the first ever WWE Great American Bash 2004, main evented by The Undertaker versus the Dudley Boys in a handicap concrete crypt match, Paul Heyman and Cement. Also on this card, Eddie Guerrero and John Bradshaw Layfield in a Texas Bull Rope match for the WWE Championship. Also on this card, John Cena, Rene Dupree, Booker T and Rene Dupree for the U.S. Championship. Kenzo Suzuki versus Billy Gunn. Mordecai versus Hardcore Holly. Luther Reigns versus Charlie Haas. Tori Wilson versus Sable. And a whole lot of shit, to be completely honest with you. This is not going to be a bad a rant as the December to December 06 was when this one watched it back. You're welcome, Daniel.
No.
So this one's not going to be as bad because this was reprehensibly bad. This was bad. But we're going to watch it back for our entertainment value. So, Daniel, you ready to watch the Great American Bash 04?
Not really, no.
Well, we're going to talk about it. You son of a bitch. So that'll be our next episode because I love you, Daniel. I really do. I love you so much.
I'll pay you.
I'll pay you. So before we close this out, Daniel Crimmins, where can we follow you on the YouTube front? Piledriver Pundit, go ahead.
That's coming back very, very soon. I know I keep saying that, but life happens. Gotta get back to it, which I will be very, very soon. Keep an eye out. I'm also on the Throne Zone, which is discussing Game of Thrones / House of the Dragon with Max Wrestling's Dazzy Lee. We just recorded an episode this past Thursday, which check it out. Check it out.
You should, because it's good. And Daniel, do you want to promote the Click This with the TSK? You're a regular on that.
We are. We have a show coming out soon. I believe we're also doing one for SummerSlam. Not exactly sure when that's going to be, but keep an eye out for it.
Alrighty, and if you want to follow Dan on Instagram, which you should, DCrimmins1, check him out and his cats. He's a cat man, because he is, as am I. And you can check out SM Show 1 MCL92 on Twitter, Larkin_92M Larkin MB on the Instagram front, StephenMikeShow.com, LFCfights.com. The YouTube channel features these two faces for 4 seasons of Uncaged. The weekly review of Paul Morales and I. Robert Davis, Nicola McDonald, and I for Deep to the Heart of Wrestling. Steve and I for the Steve and Mike Show. Pop Culture History, LFC Podcast, and so much more. 920 subscribers, you crazy sons of guns. Thank you. Let's get up to 1,000. We're getting there. We're getting there, Daniel.
We're going to the moon.
So like it, hit the bell when you can see these lovely faces doing. We're talking the Great American Bash.
Just do it.
Just do it. We have the Great American Bash Show 4 coming up. And then after that, our next 2 shows, Great American Bash Show 4 and the Best and Worst King of the Rings. I'm looking at you, Mabel. Yeah, that's all you need to know for that. So, for Daniel Crimmins.
Well, definitely not King Booker.
King Book, not King Booker. Oh, King Book. I can't wait.
Last hair is King Booker.
So, those will be our next 2 episodes for Daniel Crimmins. My name is Mike Larkin, and we're about to get the F out, and see you next time. We'll pay you!
We'll pay you!